Army Regulation 19, Administration White House Liaison Communications, unclassified. Alright, contents, purpose, reference, explanation, abbreviation, terms, responsibilities, and communication concept, innovation, invitations to the President, Vice President, or their spouses, final response, administrative control, Appendix A, reference, Appendix B, internal control, evaluation, glossary, unclassified, purpose. The regulation of the prescribe the responsibility for the provide guidelines of the liaison of the White House process of the reporting action White House communications. 2. Reference. Require related publication reference forms to listen Appendix A. Explanation abbreviations and terms abbreviations special terms used for the regulation explained in the glossary. 4. Responsibility. Secretary of the Army final approval of the authority to invitation requested of the President of the United States, Vice President of the United States, and their spouses to participate in the Department of Defense related significant Army events. Director of the Army Staff will ensure the Director of the Executive Communication Control, White House Liaison Office is responsible for liaison communication duties of the White House Military Office. Director of the Executive Communication Control White House Liaison Office manages liaison communications between Headquarters Department of Army and the White House Executive Summary of the Department of Defense on all matters except for the following. 1. Matters pertaining to the process legislation, which are reasonable with the Chief of Legislation, Liaison, Assistant Secretary of Army Financial Management, Comptroller. 2. Materials processed through the Office of Secretary of Army, Joint Staff Office of the Secretary of Defense, Headquarters Department of Army Principal Offices coordinate all communication with the White House with the Director of the Executive Communication Control White House Liaison Office. And the Director of the Executive Communication can control White House Liaison Office promptly and written requests received directly of the White House prior to the taking any action. Handled with the discretion of the direct communication White House Headquarters Department of Army staff, the following will apply. Recommended direct requests from the White House be brought to the attention of the Director of the Executive Communication Control White House Military Office. Note the detail of the request, inform the color that a response will be forthcoming. Notify the Director of Executive Communication, White House Liaison Office promptly with the request prior to taking action. Executive Communication, White House Liaison will check the validity of the request pertaining to the guidance of the Office of Secretary of Defense before responding to the call. Communication concepts. Communication is addressed by the President of the United States, Vice President of the United States, the spouse, White House staff officials from citizens are sufficiently important to warrant the acknowledgement of the receipt of an inquiry, estimate the time frames of the expected final reply from the agency of the federal government. Keeping the White House guidance instruction of the Office of Secretary of Defense with stringent response requirements, and each requirement of the Secretary of Defense imposes suspense. White House communications are received by the Executive Communication White House Liaison Officer directly from the Office of Secretary of Defense. Executive Communications Control White House Liaison will assign the suspense date ranging from 1 to 10 working days depending on the urgency of the request. White House communications are forwarded to the appropriate staff element. Executive Communications White House Liaison Office for specific action. White House communications are received at the Headquarters Department of Army, either referrals or White House bulk referrals, and described below. Referrals consist of correspondence with the President of the United States, the Vice President of the United States, Assistant President, National Security Affairs, other senior White House staff addressed to the Secretary of Defense. Other types of referrals may include correspondence from members of the Congress, corporate officials, organizational leaders, other prominent individuals addressed to the President of the United States Vice President of the United States. These types of referrals are forwarded with the White House Military Office to the Washington Headquarters Service Executive Service Division and Correspondent Management. The Directive Viva attache indicates what type of action is desired along with the instruction. Correspondence will be processed expeditiously and will receive a suspense of 5 working days. Additional guidance will be provided on request. White House bulk referrals, all routine correspondence from private citizens addressed to the President of the United States, Vice President of the United States, or the White House are forwarded to the Washington Headquarters Services. Executive Service Division with a direct response will receive a suspense for 10 working days. Some bulk referrals may receive the Health and Welfare Red Dot classification, which will receive a suspension of 5 working days. If this is the type of the referral concerning threats or thoughts of suicide threats to harm others, the soldier's chain of command will immediately initiate health welfare check of the person in question within 24 hours. Additional instruction responding will accompany each referral. White House Health and Welfare or a red dot action processing procedure. Threat to life. Suicide requires responses inquire pertaining to threat to life, potential suicide, health, welfare related concerns, as well as follows. Executive communication. White House liaison will immediately notify the soldier chain of command action to be taken to ensure the safety of the soldier families of the executive communication. White House liaison will notify the soldier unit command by telephone followed by email upon receipt of notification. Health and welfare requests sent with the White House will have 24-hour initial response time. A full, complete response of the soldier status may not be immediately available to the response chain with the command personnel provided with the executive communication White House liaison. With a comprehensive response of the chain of command has been notified, explained steps that have been taken to ensure the safety of all concerned, that is family, soldier family members, and others. If Apple provide notification, all concerned that have moved to safe location near its medical treatment facility, responsible chain command personnel provide final reply within 5 working days after the initial status report, which addresses soldier's general health status and additional actions taken. For the agency task will acknowledge all White House communication referred to the Department of the Army with directly reply to the inquiry writing to executive communication White House liaison within 24 hours date of the assignment to comply with the suspense action agency's following options. Provide a final reply no later than 12 p.m. on the suspense date with the provided interim reply inquiry writer within 2 working days. The suspense date of the suspense of that date cannot be met. Interim reply should contain information current and really available. Will establish estimated date of completion within 30 days. Maximum effort should be made provided. Final reply with the inquiry writer write new suspense dates. Subsequent interim replies are required 30 days until the final reply is provided. If a determination is made on the behalf of the President of the United States, would be inappropriate to inform the executive communication White House liaison officer in writing as to why the reply is not considered an appropriate return of the executive communication White House liaison office. Example of such a case would involve a repetitive inquiry writer who have gotten no final response of whose initial letter has been previously answered. Only the signature authorities listed below authorized to authenticate the White House communication refer to the Department of the Army for action. Carefully screen White House communications to ensure that the signature level is selected as appropriate. Replies federal, state, local officials should be prepared for the signature of a general officer or a member of the senior executive services. Replies promptly. Individuals, private citizens, or routine matters may be signed by general officer, senior executive officer, member, colonel, civil equivalent, delegated lieutenant, colonel, civil equivalent, serving leadership position. All replies to the White House communication signed by otherwise addressed will include an appropriate opening statement as shown below. Thank you for the letter to President Office regarding this is the response to your letter of the President of the United States regarding individual specifically request for the communication answered by the President of the United States. The following paragraph will be the opening statement. As much as he or she would like, President cannot reply personally every communication he or she received. Therefore, he or she has asked department or agencies of the federal government to rely upon on his or her behalf the instance where they have special knowledge or special authority under the law. For the reason for your communication has been forwarded, official of the Department of Army agencies may use the discretion to revise this paragraph. In general, the public is not familiar with the complexity of military organization. Therefore, it's important that replies straightforward, clear, responsive to the inquiry. Avoid using acronyms, other language that only a personally affiliated with the Army would understand. Unless otherwise directed, copies of all written communication initiated by the Army agencies for the White House will be forwarded memorandum addressed for the DAS-ECC White House Liaison Office to Executive Secretary of the Department of Defense. Memorandum will be signed and authorized official as prescribed in paragraph 5D. A primary mission of Executive Communications Control White House liaison is to assist actions agency providing appropriate timely replies to White House communications. Accordingly, action officer authorized and encouraged to have direct contact with the executive communication coordinator, White House liaison office. 6. Invitations to the President, Vice President, or spouses. Invitation of the President, Vice President, or the spouse to participate in the DoD-related significant Army events will be forwarded memorandum through the requesting organization higher headquarters, Executive Communication Coordinator, White House Liaison 200, Army, Pentagon, Washington, D.C. 2031-0200, 0200, brought the upon SA Secretary Army, the request will forward to the Department of Defense furthering process and endorsement. If the invitation to the White House involved the Department of Defense-wide event with more than one service that included football games between service academic academies, or is combined with another federal agency, for example, the Department of Veterans Affairs, to request signing of a memorandum letter extending the invitation of the President of the United States, the Vice President of the United States will be forwarded to the Secretary of Defense signature. Invitations must be submitted early enough to accommodate appropriate staff of the Army senior with the leadership of the Department of Defense at least 20 to 30 days. The Executive Communication Coordinator, White House Military Office, requires at least 60 to 90 days in advance of the event. The date allow the time considered appropriate response. The following statement will be used to respond to individual organizations extending an invitation for the President of the United States to make personal appearance. President Cecilia appreciates your gracious invitation to. However, his or her schedule will not permit at this particular time. It may be appropriate to reply including greetings or good wishes on the behalf of the President of the United States in instance of special observance, for example, anniversary celebrations for specific Army organizations, units, organization recognition for individual upon retirement. 7. Final response. If the headquarters department agency responds to numerous White House inquiries by individual agency, may initiate the draft terminal response. A cover memorandum given the history of the previous correspondence attaching the draft response to draft of the White House Military Office to Executive Secretary of the Department of Defense. After the Executive Secretary of the Department of Defense approves the draft response for the response, the headquarters Department of the Army Principal Office will prepare with the dispatch final response. Administrative control. Executive Communication Coordinator, White House Liaison Office will assign the action of all White House correspondence to Task Control Street. Headquarters Department of Army Tracking System will be used to task the Headquarters Department of Army Principal Office. The sheet will include pre-imposed Office Secretary of Defense suspense, type of action taken, instruction for process of action agency, terms White House communications should be transferred to another Headquarters Department and Principal Office, the Department of Defense agency, any other agency outside of the Army jurisdiction. Action Office must coordinate with the appropriate Headquarters Department Army Principal Office, Executive Communication Coordinator, White House Liaison Office. The case will be returned with the Office of Secretary of Defense Correspondent Management Directorate for appropriate tasking and any other transfer. The SD Form 391 Secretary of Defense Correspondent Action Report. Suspense date. Pre-imposed Office Secretary of Defense suspense dot or red dot actions cannot be extended. Only in terms replied to inquiry writer established estimated completion date. Estimated completion date will not be no later than 30 days from the day of the interim reply unless otherwise stated in closing paragraph. Type of action. Army agencies will take action indicating the task control sheet action in appropriate block under role indicated remarks section. Processing. Taking task controlling sheet may be returned to White House Liaison with appropriate copies and all original correspondence. Appendix A. Reference. This publication section contains no entries. Alright, we have the Internal Control Evaluation Certificate, Recommended Change in Publication, Secretary of Defense Correspondent Action Report, Appendix B, Internal Control Evaluation Function, covered with the evaluation Army correspondence received from the White House. The purpose of the evaluation is to the Army Regulation 19 evaluating key internal controls listed, not intended with the control, cover all the controls. B3 instructions. Answers must be made in actual testing key internal controls. Example, the document analysis, direct observation, sample stimulation. Answering the indicated deficiencies must be explained. Correct action, identifying supporting documentation. Internal controls must be evaluated at least once every 5 years. Certification evaluation has been conducted. Must be a copy of DA Form 11-2 Internal Control Evaluation Certificate. Or certification. Testing questions are corresponding to action properly routed, appropriate address, associate expected to exercise control to take action. Is Army reading effective free error, substance, organization style, and correctness? Have all the Army invitations of the President of the United States, Vice President of the United States, spouse have been routed to the Secretary of the Army? B5 supersession, not applicable. Comments help make the better tool of evaluating internal control. Submit comments to the Department of Army, Department of Assistant Secretary, Executive Communication, White House Liaison, 200 Army, Washington, D.C., 23-310200. And that's Army Regulation 19. Administration, White House Liaison, Communications, and Liaisons and Communications.